Hello, hello. Welcome to the Finding Notice Show. Welcome to the Finding Notice Show once again. I do hope you are exceedingly well, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you're going through, and yeah, I hope you're getting what you deserve, and I hope that you are getting somewhere that is fruitful to your own well-being and the well-being of others. We are live now on the interweb, and really, we're just waiting to see who pops up in the chat as usual and to see where the conversation might go. As usual, we are trying to find gnosis, we're trying to find knowledge that will help each of us on our own subjective journey through this strange place, this existence, and that is the aim. We enter into conversation with good faith on this channel. We're not trying to hurt anyone. We're not trying to put others down. We're trying to lift each other up, to help each other out. So if that's what you'd like to do too, why don't you hang around and listen and join the show if you feel the urge to. It's a very easygoing panel here. So feel most welcome if you want to come on and share your thoughts about what is going on in this reality, whether that is existentially, whether it is in terms of geopolitics, local politics, whether it's in terms of the economy, news, or your thoughts for the future. What is going on? We have Divine in the house. Hello to Divine. Divine Hazel is always here singing the praises of the show. It's so lovely to have Divine Hazel here. A very good soul indeed. She says, hello, DNW. Nice to see you here. Nice to see you too, Miss Divine Hazel. And she says, hello, welcome to the Finding Gnosis show. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And wonderfully, I am very delighted to say we also have a Tracking here. It is a great honor to have Mr. Tracking here. I'm a great fan of his. I think he's a very authentic and original speaker. And he certainly has some, strong points to make. And he does so very articulately. And you know what, guys? After me saying that, he is on the show. You're on the show, Mr. Tracking. Welcome. Welcome. How are you, sir?
Hello, good evening. I've I just finished my second ever shift as a care worker.
Yes, I did see that. You are now a care worker. How's that going for you? Because
It's heavy going. It's more or less exactly what I thought it would be. I've oh yeah, I was meant to upload this vlog giving my thoughts about it, but the vlog hasn't gone live on YouTube. Maybe there's been a connection error. But I didn't get into this job because I thought it would be glamorous. It's the opposite of glamorous. It's exactly what you think it is. It's I've been am I allowed to use naughty words on your live stream?
depends what they are, but go ahead.
I've cleaned people's cocks. I saw an old woman getting her nether regions get cleaned. I've wiped men's asses. That's with a plural. I've been there and seen lots of shit, in a manner of speaking.
Well, brother, if
So,
there's anybody who is building up their future good karma, it's you. What you're doing
that's
tracking
assuring.
is a very important job, though. No joke. It is a very important job,
Yes,
and I do. On behalf of
exactly.
those people who can't thank you themselves, I'm sure you're probably treating and helping lots of people in all kinds of situations. Maybe they can't even talk that well, but thank you. You're doing a great service, and in my view, one thing about support workers and care workers, one thing is they don't get paid enough, do they?
Yeah, no. That is exactly one of the things I wanted to say. So I get I get annoyed and bored whenever I go on BBC Question Time, or I see people talking about how NHS nurses or junior doctors aren't getting paid enough money, or care workers. But I do actually agree we should be paying care workers and NHS staff more money, because it is a thankless and tireless job. Well, when I say tireless, I don't mean in that it's physically tiring, because it's not. It is challenging, but not in that way. It's challenging because you are being face to face with, among many things, the inevitability of death, the the inevitability of old age. You're going to be treating people who are physically infirm, who cannot lift themselves or move around. So you'll have to do most of the moving. You'll have to do things that are so degrading. You would probably, I don't know if I speak for everyone, but I imagine a large number of people would probably want to kill themselves rather than personally endure. So that is, and that's why we should pay care workers more money. And it's not about whether the market values care work, because that the thing is, it doesn't. We outsource most of our care working jobs and NHS nurse work to immigrants, because it's not that valued by the economy. But it's not about that. It should be as a sign of respect. We should confer a level of status on people who do these jobs, because everyone's going to get old eventually. Not everyone will have the good fortune to be in a sound of mind and able to look after themselves, like my grandparents who are in their 90s, when they reach a certain age. Just some people just have this, it's encoded in their genome that they're not meant to survive past a certain age. And those people are going to be dependent on either their family, or if not their family, then people like myself, until they die. And my father was like this in his last moments, because he had stage 4 cancer. And it is a gross job, but that doesn't change the material reality that it has to be done. It is a job that needs to be done. There's no
Absolutely.
escaping it. And I feel like by taking on this job, unglorious though it might be, I'm toughening myself and preparing myself for what may well be inevitable. I'm trying to raise my disgust threshold so that I can become a more mature and responsible adult. Well, that's what I see I'm getting out of this, other than perhaps the pay, which is also good, all things considered.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm glad that it's good. In terms of the
Mhm.
pay. Now, what you said there about raising your threshold, I think that's an important thing to do in life. That we like, life is very difficult sometimes, and a lot of the trouble we have is not being prepared for those difficulties, because we are shocked by them when they happen. So do you think there's some kind of benefit, or do you think it is necessary to perhaps introduce everybody at some point, maybe at an early stage of their development, to the harsh realities of life, as in a practical sense? Do you think that would be a good idea? Because I was wondering, would it be good to have some kind of civil kind of service where you had to help elderly people, you had to work in a care home, say for a period of your teenage years, as part of your civil duty, perhaps? Would you see that as a good idea, or do you think that would perhaps present problems because it would entail people who aren't suited to the job being put in a position where either they may harm the individuals, or they may not just be up to the task because psychologically it could be detrimental to them?
Well, that's a very good point, and I've thought about this a lot. And what I would say is, I don't like the idea of making it mandatory. I don't think, certainly, I will say, care work is not for everyone. It's not for everyone I would argue, in the same way that truck driving or being a computer programmer isn't for everyone. The fact of the matter is, we're all different. And by the way, care worker is being a care worker is an overwhelmingly female phenomenon. It's most of the people who do it are women, and um, I have a theory that the same reason that nurse work is predominantly done by women. My theory about this is that it's because women are more inclined to be caring and compassionate. They're more likely to be concerned about the welfare and well-being of individuals, especially who are weak and vulnerable, whereas men, on the other hand, tend to be more status driven, and they tend to go for jobs that pay more money. Of course, these are stereotypes, and they're
I
generally
mean,
true, but they're not true in all cases.
do you think? Yeah, I'm wondering, is that actually true, or is it that in the part that there might be something to do with conditioning here? Because in the past, I'm talking about in the distant past, when work was outside the home, involved farming, mining, being a warrior, being a fisherman, whatever it was, um, construction. Those things took physical effort that perhaps the women couldn't match, in terms of their muscularity. Okay. And perhaps they were in some way pushed into these jobs because of their position as physically less able entities. Um, so that's just a suggestion, because I'm not so sure if women are inherently more caring. I know that's a strange thing to say, because it is generally accepted that women are generally more caring, but I think that might be just something we think. I don't know if it's actually true. I don't know if there's any proof of that.
It may or may not be true, but the undeniable reality is that most care workers are women, and it's not that there aren't male care workers too. I've come across two of them, but statistically speaking, you're more likely to get cared for by a female care worker, and most people request a female care worker. It's just one of those things. It's hard for me to comment on, but I didn't get round to finish. I didn't get round to finishing my answer to your previous question. Do I think that all people should be encouraged to go into care worker? Well, in general, I don't believe it's a good idea to force people into anything, and that includes being a care worker. However, I think that the, one of the ways that we can prepare people uh, for reality, so as they don't grow up to have any false expectations, is that we force them in some way to come to terms with the cruel realities of life, the inevitability of death and aging. Whether I think care work, a state mandated care working stint would be the best idea for that. And actually, as you said, as you correctly pointed out, not everyone is fit to be a care worker. There are all these horrific stories that I've come across in the news about these people who are literally convicted criminals who've been physically abusing or stealing money from their patients. And that is absolutely, that should not be tolerated at all. I find that viscerally disgusting. More or less the same way that I had to do, the unpleasant aspects of my job. However bad that is, I think this is even worse, because you're taking advantage of the weakness and the frailties of people
What do you
who
do?
aren't.
Do you think it's irredeemable? Do you think do you think a person who does that is irredeemably bad?
Well, I don't know about irredeemable, but I consider that behavior to be so disgusting and so sick. I can't. I see red when I think about it, because
Mm,
the idea that you're using your strength or your intelligence, your wits, or whatever, to take advantage or exploit people who are beneath you. I just find
yeah.
that so. I find that so sickening and revolting. And I don't. Sorry,
No,
I'm not
no,
very good at
I agree.
giving out
It is
my
like
thoughts on it.
it is actually very, very scary to think that does happen when people are at their most vulnerable. There are sometimes, human vultures around uh, to take advantage of that fact and to steal from the person. I mean, I've even heard horror stories in care homes of people physically abusing and even sexually abusing patients. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's a terrifying
Jesus.
thing. Now, having said all that, anecdotally, can you tell me what do you think of other care workers? Because generally, the care workers I've met in life have been nice people. I've found them to be, well, generally nice people. Maybe even nicer than the average nurse I've met.
Well, anecdotally, I wouldn't say I have an overall opinion on whether they're nicer than most people I've met, or they're just people who work in a profession. But I think in order to submit yourself to the indignities that being a care worker entails, it says something about you as a character, even if you don't show it, or even if it's not apparent to other people
Yeah.
when you're in a social setting. So I had this idea that they may be really kind and generous, but I haven't really been paying attention to that as much. Uh, Hold on. I should have made this clear from the start. I am actually on that note. A lot of the people who I work with, they're very patient and very they're not they're not fussy, and they don't get frustrated with me if I misunderstand their instructions. And that is something I greatly appreciate, because one of the reasons I left my previous job at Royal Mail is that they have a lot of demands. There's lots of things that they expect you to do, and and you're in a lot of trouble if you don't make a certain amount of deliveries by a certain time span. So I couldn't survive that kind of environment, but I feel a little more comfortable in in this line of work because people are understanding. So far, I've just been doing shadow shifts. So I've been doing a mixture of watching other people change sanitary pads, or help clean the service users, and doing some of it myself. But that's the kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not all work environments are like that. Not all people are like that. But in the care worker industry, most people have been very pleasant and very warm and patient with me. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say yes. Broadly, they are quite nice.
Good. Just one other thing that just came to mind, because we often go into doom and gloom on this channel in terms of our conversations. But has your work so far in the care industry given you any glimmer of for society? Because sometimes I think, what, there are parts of society that are trying really hard, and as bad as existence can be, at least there is somebody, or at least there are people like yourself who will wipe someone's bottom when they're dying. In their old age. At least,
Uh,
what I'm saying is, has your job so far given you hope for humanity, for your future? You mentioned it's made you face death. Have you kind of thought to yourself, well, perhaps this existence wouldn't be too bad if everybody was cared for adequately if they needed to be?
my thoughts usually always revert back to the same thing. None of the people who we visit, none of the service users, by the way, that's what we call them, none of the people who we care after are in that position by choice. It's always a mixture. Some of them have been involved in horrific accidents, um, like car accidents where they've been paralyzed from the waist down. Others have had a stroke where they've two of my service users, in fact. Stroke is a serious. It's no joke.
No.
Stroke is it's like a heart attack, but for the brain. So think of it as a brain attack. And the nasty thing about having a stroke is, even if you survive it, you don't come out of it in one piece. Often, as is the case, it you will find that half of your face and your arms and your limbs have been paralyzed, so you're physically unable to smile, or lift your arms, or even talk properly. It leaves you into such a train wreck of a human being. And then don't even get me started on dementia. What the I tell you this: one of the service users I met, he was a man in late stage dementia. I think he was 90. He used to be a dock worker for Southampton, and he kept moaning and groaning while we were performing a pad change on him. And 6 times in the very same half hour that I was there, he kept asking who I was. He kept looking at, who is that tall man over there? And we kept having to explain to him, he's your care worker. That's Benjamin. And he kept asking the same questions 6 times. And it's the way you see old people depicted in media. I can assure you, it's not a stereotype. It's not an overblown stereotype. That is what dementia literally does to you. And if he had any semblance of human cognition in him, or if he had the self-awareness to know just how degrading it is, nobody wants to be in this position. So anyway, going back to your earlier question, sorry, I ramble a lot. What sort of hope does my work inspire in me? Well, I don't know what your thoughts are on me speaking, airing my thoughts on this publicly. I think you and I may disagree on this, but I am an outspoken advocate for eugenics because there's a lot of evidence to show that diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia, there is a genetic link to most of them. Even things, propensity for having a stroke or a heart attack is another. And I think if as a society we are more open to the idea that we could use gene editing to make our gene pool more resilient, we'd be in a position where we had less people who are more dependent on care workers. Because I'm not against the idea of getting old. I am against people becoming so old that they need others to look after them if we have the technology and the means and the know-how to prevent that from happening in the first place. Because no matter how important care workers are, dignity is sacred. And I don't, even speaking as a care worker myself, I don't know how I would feel if I ended up in a serious accident where my spine was broken and I needed to be in wheelchairs or have care workers attend to me in real life. I don't actually know if I'd have the stomach to go through with it. It's a personal subject, and I might talk about it in a different video. But yeah, those are. If you're
I mean,
asking me, what am I?
you're asking me. I have no problem with gene editing if it's bettering someone's life, and no problem. But
Well,
yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, eugenics and gene editing, they kind of operate around the same principles. It's just eugenics is before birth. And gene editing.
Well,
I don't know if
really
you're aware of this
have a
actually.
problem with. I don't have a problem with gene editing in utero or in the embryo as well. If people are going to do it, if they're going to bring someone here, and they have a terrible condition, well, it's probably better that they do it is better in my view that they do the kind of the embryo rather than bring that individual here with a severe problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I will say, speaking on the subject of hope, I read a story in the news. I don't know if you came across this. Apparently, they found a cure for Huntington's disease. They
I heard that
do
recently,
you know what
yeah.
Hunting? Yeah, they basically they found
remind
a
me
procedure.
exactly what it is, because I heard about the story, but I can't remember what Huntington's disease is.
Okay, so Huntington's disease is a degenerative. It's a degenerative disease where up until recently there was basically no cure. It's similar to motor neuron disease or cystic fibrosis.
Mm.
It causes damage to your brain, and it makes you basically physically and mentally infirm. I've had, luckily, I've never been in a position where I've had to look after someone with Huntington's disease, and it's rare. Not a lot of people have it in the first place. But just, my God, imagine having to deal with, imagine having to care for somebody who was like that. And the tragedy with Huntington's disease and diseases like, oh, sorry, the biggest tragedy with diseases like Huntington's disease or motor neuron disease or cystic fibrosis is basically you're dead before you're even born, because if you have the gene, if you have the recessive allele that carries it, it's basically, or up until recently, a death sentence because there's nothing that can be done, and I'm
I
absolutely.
mean, that's the same. It's just a kind of quicker death sentence, isn't it? Than I mean, all life is basically a death sentence. A death sentence, if you want to view it that way. You're not going to live forever, are you?
Well, define quick. I mean, if you're,
Oh yeah,
if,
it's quicker. It's exactly. Sorry, that sounded a bit glib. It's not quick. It obviously takes some time. But what I meant is the death comes sooner than is normally the case.
yeah, I guess so. And there are people who might throw out the argument, well, even so, can't these genetic diseases give us an opportunity to be more fortunate and compassionate to people? And I'm just thinking, no, because if we have the means to get rid of these diseases or prevent them, then the compassionate thing to do is to get rid of them. It's not to keep them around so that we can treat these people as adult infants for the rest of their miserable lives.
I
And
suppose it becomes like part of the question of what is the human, what is the individual? Are they their DNA or are they the conscious experience? And I think a lot of people are still trapped in the kind of seeing the shell as the true individual when really that's like the prison of the consciousness. That the consciousness is is different from the body, if you know what I mean. So I think that could be part of it. Like they are overemphasizing the biology when the biology is the problem for the consciousness, if you know what I mean.
you're saying that's what they think.
I think that's as humans, that's what we're overemphasizing biology's importance. When what is important is the consciousness and how that feels about this reality. You know what I mean? So, for example, what you just said there, tracking. You said people talk about these conditions that are debilitating or horrific. They talk about them as if they're good things because they cause empathy. Uh, but at the
Well,
same time,
I was being flippant. I was throwing this out there as a possible response that someone might say as an argument for not implementing eugenics or gene editing measures to get rid of them. I was giving that there as an example, but I don't know of anyone who's actually seriously believes that. But anyway, sorry for interrupting. Oh, we appear to have somebody else.
we do. We have Mr. Cougar. Oh, he's popped out, but he'll be back.
Oh,
I'm sure. He just
okay.
dropped out for
Hello,
some reason.
goodbye.
No. My point is, people do feel attached to holding on to the biology of individuals as if you shouldn't edit their DNA because somehow it's wrong to do that because you're messing with nature. That is a kind of view. You shouldn't mess with nature because nature knows best. And somehow, if you're editing out the DNA of that individual, the genes of that individual, you're somehow deleting them. You're deleting a part of them. But I think that's a very weird, simplistic view because I view the individual as the consciousness, and they're kind of like a victim of the DNA, as it were. And it's good.
Yeah,
It's good to edit the DNA if it helps the consciousness have a better experience.
yeah, exactly. I think the consciousness is inseparable from the DNA. If you're depending on what kind of DNA you have, and these are my views. I don't know how many other people agree with this, but this is largely because I'm a determinist. Your your consciousness will be a certain way, depend, and this is all dependent on factors that are within your genome, which you as an individual have zero control over. To be honest, I don't even think the environment that you grow up in has that much of a substantial impact. But that's only because I watch a lot of lectures by Robert Sapolsky and the Jolly Heretic. But yeah, no, I don't disagree. So who's the guy who joined us, Mr. Cougar?
Hello, Mr. Cougar.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I
Hello.
just thought I would drop in.
Yeah. Basically, Coog, I don't know if you were listening to the show, but we were talking to Tracking. Tracking has started a job as a carer for the elderly and for individuals who are in a sorry state of affairs. And basically, it sounds like Tracking, you're going to people's houses, are you? That you're going around to visiting people? Is that, or is it in a care
Yes,
home?
yeah, that's right. No, I'm a mobile care worker. I drive around in my car. I live in the Isle of Wight, which is a small island that's about I forget how many I forget how large it is, but basically the longest distance you can get is somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes, and that's what I have to do. I have to drive all around the island. I have a rota of service users that I got to visit, and I'll spend somewhere between 30 minutes to 2 hours with one of them. And sometimes my jobs consist of doing things like a pad change, a nappy change, but we don't call them nappies, we call them pads, and to cleaning and showering. And at other times, it's a lot more straightforward. We sit and watch TV with them and talk with them.
Right.
And that's one thing I will say is I actually really enjoy. I have a sentimental fondness for that aspect of the job because you're basically being a friend to them. And elderly people are they get incredibly lonely. Most of the time, nobody ever visits them, so they're very generous and very open towards younger care workers.
So yeah,
And that's something I
Tracking
enjoy.
has been speaking about how his care work has opened him up to the possibility of perhaps being a little bit more resilient uh, towards life's harshness, and also more competent in his ability to help people. So he's looking at it in that positive light. I don't know. Have you got any thoughts on the care work industry or the care industry in terms of its pay,
Yeah,
how people,
I get.
what you think?
Yeah, I do actually. I've I have a long history doing the same thing. To be honest.
Oh,
Um,
really?
Wonderful.
uh, yeah, I did that over here in several cases. Actually, I'll run through them quickly. My actual background is a biologist, so I have some thoughts on this topic writ large. But I worked in a hospital I put myself through college working in a hospital, so I dealt with a lot of people. I was in the X-ray department. X-ray gets everybody who's like on their way out, right? Cancer, problems with hernias, things like that. So I worked in a hospital for a long time and worked with a lot of elderly and people with chronic illnesses. And then after that, I actually took a short gig about 9 months as a live-in personal attendant to a disabled young man who was also in college. And he needed full care, live-in care, everything. Uh, Toilet, bathing, eating. He couldn't cook. Complete quadriplegic. So I have had 9 months with that. And then more recently, in addition to being a parent, having two grown children now, which is almost the same thing as what you're talking about. And then my mother-in-law was living in a care facility in her old age, and finally we had an opportunity to bring her into our home. So once again, we were doing 24/7 care for this very, very elderly, frail woman who couldn't even get out of bed. So she was completely bedridden. Her mind was good, so we could talk with her, communicate with her. And that makes a big difference, by the way, and I'm sure you've noticed this yourself. Being able to talk to people really reduces the barriers. So, and she died in our home, which was actually a beautiful thing. At like 84 or something, she just went to sleep and didn't wake up. So having done this, congratulations. I mean, you're doing work that is amazingly important. Um, Now, there is another intersection with this I'm going to bring up, and apologies to the host, but um, I wrote a book. It was 100 Days, and it's about the end of civilization. And in that, we discuss in like journalistic form how everybody has to pull together. They form a village. The elders come, the children come. Everybody suddenly is both, a warrior, a farmer, a construction worker, and a caregiver. Everyone in the village, every single person in the village does all these things. women do maybe a little more childcare than some of the men do, but everyone is helping the elderly, everyone is helping the children, and of course, everyone is providing for food, clothing, and shelter. And I think the reason I mention it is because I think that's a interesting extrapolation from what I've done myself and from what you are doing now. Um, that it's good, but from my experience, and maybe your experience as well, and you can weigh in on this, it's good, but it's not adequate to have individualized care for individuals in a individual setting. I think the healthier, more robust, and maybe even more humane model is community care, where villages form around the idea of taking care of the most vulnerable. Even Paleolithic humans, there's evidence that people who had injuries, evidence of injuries in their bones, so bones never healed right, frozen joints, all this, they lived, they survived. And so what that meant was that the entire community was feeding those people and protecting them, and the bringing them inside and doing the whole thing. And some of these
They were
people
an
may have
integral
lived.
part of reality
Yeah,
for those societies. That's
yeah,
an interesting, Cougar. That's interesting. That yeah, I mean, I've also heard in Indian culture, well, like in the distant past, there were times when some severely disabled people were celebrated in society, and they were honored and given places in society in terms of they were even worshipped. They were even as I said, they were celebrated. They were carried around on people's shoulders, and invited to be at the head of the table at feasts and whatever. Because somehow they were seen as messengers from the divine, but also part of the divine, and also some would say they were the price paid for everyone else's joy. You know what I mean? And so we had a duty
yeah.
to look after them and include them in our day-to-day affairs in our society. Do you think, Cougar, we lost? Do you think we lost that? We've seriously lost that as a society? Are
Oh
we?
yeah,
Are we?
obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would say we have.
Yeah, but what it is, and this probably won't land well with everybody equally, but what's happened is that basically capitalism, consumerism has taken over care. And now it's not whether you're I don't want to say worthy. Everyone is worthy. So what are we talking about here? It's not you have to have money to get care,
It becomes
or you
that. It
have to live
becomes
in a.
about. It becomes about efficiency to make money, doesn't it? Efficiency to add value to the economic model. That's what it becomes about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
we were. I was just saying, I was talking about this briefly before you joined. I was saying the nature of the modern economy, but the fact that we live in a globalized, highly competitive global network of world trade means the people with the highest intelligence and the most niche skills are the ones who get rewarded the most. And in this modern economy, there's very little incentive, at least from a material standpoint, to be a care worker because in theory, lots of people are capable of doing it. And that's one of the reasons why doing care work is seen as such a lowly profession. And that's one of the interesting problems. That's part of the reason why we have these issues with care work, and why we have so much, as you said, individualized care work. And do you, just out of interest, Cougar, do you think that it will take a cataclysmic civilization ending event like the one you described in the novel you're writing to get us back to that default setting of having community care, or do you think there's another way?
No, I think it takes a catastrophe. I have no faith in our ability to, what would it be, do the right thing. There's just too much propaganda and stereotyping. And like you said, there's almost a deliberate
A deliberate what?
We lost him on
Deliberate.
that cliffhanger, and hopefully, I know he'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be back. But that was the question you asked there, Tracking. Do you want to ask it again and maybe answer it for yourself?
Well, funnily enough, this entire time we haven't even begun to talk about AI and robotics and how that could probably change everything.
Yeah, that apparently it is gonna change the care industry, isn't it? There's gonna be robots wiping people's bottoms, tracking.
Well, there's an important distinction that needs to be made here between AI, artificial intelligence, and robotics. Now, we may be on the cusp of living in the AI singularity, where lots of white collar jobs are probably going to be wiped out. I genuinely do think that by 2030, most jobs, most office jobs that involve looking at spreadsheets, sending emails, or things like that, will probably go to AI, barring some unforeseen black swan financial event that resembles the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s. But robotics is an entirely different kettle of fish, and I think it'll probably take another couple decades before we have robot care workers. But that's just my thought. He's back. Welcome back, Cougar.
Yeah, sorry, I got kicked off. I'm working on my property, so I'm wandering around. It's possible that I just dropped off the Wi-Fi. Sorry.
I need to quickly fetch my
Tracking
charger.
had a question for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
Are you talking about? Oh yeah, that's right. So you're certain you absolutely believe that the only way for us to go back to having community care is if there's a cataclysmic, a sort of a Carrington event-like phenomenon that completely destabilizes the global economy and brings us back to the 19th or 18th century. But what about the rise of AI and robotics? Do you think that might change anything?
Well, the problem in general with technology is it is never evenly applied. It never. We don't even have like universal internet access, right? So there's just so much undesired about how capitalism apportions technology. So I don't think we can count on that. Could robots, AI-driven robots, eventually become nurses and teachers and caregivers? And maybe, but I promise you, I don't know why they would do this, but I promise you, it just won't happen. Maybe for Elon Musk, maybe when he's 92 years old and needs his nappy changed, he'll have a robot to do that. But the rest of us, I'm just convinced we're on our own. I don't. They want our money, okay? And then so if there's a robotic way to do it, and you've got the $500,000 to pay the freight, then they'll give you a robot. But for the rest of us, I think we're just going to be left twisting in the wind.
Cougar, is it sometimes when I get into my most depressed outlook, it's not necessarily about money. They want our vitality. That's what I think. Sometimes they want what they can get out of us. They want to rinse us of our usage to benefit them. Is it as dark as that? Like that the overlords, the elites want to get what they can out of society, and they don't really care about the consequences for those they are using?
Well, sure. I mean, look at what they've done with labor and wages and working conditions. Look what Jeff Bezos does with his workers. It's obvious that they're trying to get the most value they can out of workers. And I guess the bleak side of that is they want to get the most value out of workers they can before the worker dies. Many places people are being worked to death, and that's probably deliberate. Look what happens if you work somebody to death. They die, and you don't have to pay health care for them anymore. They're dead. They're not ill. They're not chronically ill. Yeah. They're dead.
And also, one of the other plus sides to that is, in terms of some kind of totalitarian regime, is that if the workers dead after if after they give up working they die fairly soon, then they're not in a position to rebel, you know. And if you work them long enough, they haven't got the health to rebel. So there's that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and getting back to the care thing, um, care workers like teachers.
So 1 second. There is the young man that's joined. What name are you going by this time?
Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot, can you mute yourself when you are not talking, please? Because we're getting an echo of
Yeah.
Cougar. Thank you.
Yeah, I already know, like I already know about this, so I'm gonna keep it muted, right?
All right, bro.
Since
Well, you can talk when you want to, but just mute when you're not talking. Thank you. Sorry, Cougar.
Yeah, sure. So, and it's worth keeping in mind. I mean, if you want to be further depressed and lose all faith in humanity, it's worth remembering that the people who really understand how bad it is, they're not the bloggers and the vloggers and these guys. It's the teachers, it's the nurses, it's even the doctors, maybe the police. People out in the streets. There are people who do intake for drug overdoses and emergency rooms. These are the people who really know. And one way to keep those people from becoming political or wanting to exercise their political voice is to simply overwhelm their nature. Their nature is to provide succor and service and to ease the ailing.
You raise a fantastic point, Cougar. Maybe that's why these kind of service industries, like the police, the medical care, etc. Maybe that's why they don't give them enough funding, because they want hands on deck. They want these people so tired at the end of a shift, they have no energy to do anything, to talk about what is going on.
Yeah, and that's kind of a bleak viewpoint, but if I was these people, or they asked me for advice on how to keep a lid on, then I would tell them, look, not everybody knows what the problems are. So you have to find those people who know and just keep them from becoming political, keep them from becoming a voice, and you just have to basically work them to death. And it works. It's happening. We see this with teachers. Teachers never come up for air. Never. They never come up for air.
Or give them psychoactive medication to numb them down so they go into some kind of zombie-like state where they don't get upset, even if they should.
Well, yeah, and that applies to the entirety of society. We are way over medicated, and a lot of it is psychotropics. A lot of it. You can get that stuff for the asking, but we are also. I was going to say something else, but yeah, it definitely is a societal trend of just doping people up and making sure that they can't think clearly.
I call it I call them shut the fuck up pills. You go to the
doctor. They really are. They really are. And look at the pipeline here. Someone starts to get upset about the world, right? And they get angry and they start acting out. And it's a young person. They don't have the best communication skills a lot of the time. They're young, right? Someone like me, I'm not going to act out like that, but a young person will. And what's the first thing that happens? They accuse them of being ADHD or something, whatever is trendy, and they send them to the clinic. And they talk to a therapist. The therapist says, look, I can't help you. And what they're saying is, you're angry at society, as well you should be, because it's fucked up. But therefore, I can't help you, because you don't have a problem I can solve. However, now that you're here, I can write a prescription. And they write them a prescription. And then they're and then, that person might have been the...
We're losing you, Cougar.
Chopping up.
Cougar, if you could just backtrack a bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's
Cougar, go ahead. Are
that's
you with
like
us?
how I feel as well. That's definitely how I feel.
While we're waiting for Cougar,
about it.
Mr. Robot, did you want to say something?
No, I was gonna say like I was gonna add on to what he was saying, that that's exactly like what I'm going through, because yeah, I'm also like angry. I don't want to say angry at society, but just like angry how things are in general, and like the way things are. And like a therapist won't really understand that. They're not gonna.
They might though. They might understand it. You got to be careful with your generalizations. They might understand it. Cougar, we can't hear you.
I'm not talking. I'm just listening.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, because you were talking. So yeah, Mr. Robot, do you want to make your
Okay.
point then, and then we'll go back to Mr. Cougar because he was talking.
Okay. I'm just gonna say a couple things quickly, and then I'm gonna let Kruger talk, I guess, again. Yep. So from what he was saying, like with you know how they treat younger people, it's definitely like they don't really understand why, you know, like why younger people are upset or anything like that, you know. They just want to point the blame, I think.
In some cases, Cougar, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I guess what I was saying comes down to something the Japanese have a good of a saying about. And I thought it applies to a lot of situations. The nail that sticks up gets hammered down.
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
have heard that as well. It's a good saying actually. Yeah, I think that is generally the case. If you stick out in nature, you will be taken out by predators, even, and also in terms of evolutionary psychology and evolutionary, biology. I believe there is this thing of the law of averages. It's good to be average. It means you're fitting in. So there is a movement individually towards trying to be the norm, even though the norm is this immaterial thing that doesn't exist. People are trying to move towards being perceived as normal, and
But what if
in trying to move towards being normal as an individual, I believe part of the kind of darker kind of psychological tactics of doing that is to point out other people's abnormality. So people point to others to take the spotlight off themselves. So therefore, other people aren't looking at them and perhaps seeing the abnormalities that are oozing from them as individuals, if you know what I mean, and threatening them in a kind of evolutionary way, you know, so making them stick out. Cougar, what do you think?
Yeah. Audio check. Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear
Yeah.
you fine.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Getting back somewhat to the topic of caregiving, you know, by atomizing, if that's the right word, by distributing trauma, meaning lonely people, people that have been damaged by their jobs, people that are damaged by the environment or by war, right? By distributing this and then atomizing the care. So you have individuals going out to care for individuals who are now out of sight. You kind of, and the same thing happens with children. Children who go to public school, you know, if they don't act just right, they get medicated. And what ends up happening is there's no sense of a critical mass. There's no sense that we have a lot of damaged people, and they really, really share many characteristics of damage. You know, trauma, PTSD, violence in the environment. You know, and by atomizing it, it never rises to the level of, say, media attention. It's just out there. And then you make it kind of a business model. So there's caregivers, and this is no detraction to our guest host. Um, there's a business model here, and people can make a living either living in with people who need care or going to their home and sitting with them and watching TV. I mean, this is actually the work of the moment, but look what it does. It atomizes and distributes and basically vanishes the scope of the problem.
Yeah, and it's not even just that, Cougar. I don't really have a problem with people getting paid to do that and tracking. I don't think you should really comment about this because you might get into trouble if anybody finds out who you are with your employer. But I think from my understanding, as I said, anecdotally talking to people, I've known a few people who run care companies and such, and believe me, the markup they are getting for man hours, you know, the company is getting more obviously than the individual per hour, and it's crazy the amount of money, and this is in general, I believe it's crazy in general the amount of money that is going to the company that organizes the care, you know. They're getting maybe
Well,
double the tracker's pay or more, you know, per hour. And it's the same here in nursing agencies as well. It's the same story. This isn't just a problem in the medical field or in the care industry. It is interesting to look at what people get paid, okay, and then what the company gets for their labor. It's always been an interest. It is something that I find bamboozling sometimes and very sad. I think a lot of the modern issues that people are facing are down to, bad pay, and I think that one of the reasons we have such bad pay is down to what Cougar is talking about here. It's the atomization, and that isn't just a problem in the care industry and putting going to visit people in their homes, but it's also the case that the worker has been more and more disenfranchised, and the unions have been sandblasted into oblivion. They don't exist. They don't have any power, and so the workers, I believe, Cougar, aren't the average worker isn't getting his due pay. And they're being really taken advantage of, I believe, in this modern day society.
Yeah,
I
sure,
agree.
but that's the business model.
Yes.
I wanted to. I
was making
wanted
the broader
to.
point.
I wanted to add something to what you just said. Speaking as somebody from the UK, which is where Finding Gnosis is also from. One of the reasons why we have so many immigrants come to this country, mass immigration, and it's no joke, we get somewhere like 1 million people from India or Africa, is because one of the reasons they keep telling us is because we need healthcare workers and NHS workers. And this relates to what you were describing earlier, the atomization of individuals. We've outsourced what used to be basic family care, something that you would have to do for your grandparents when they're at the point of death, to cheap foreign labor. Why do we do this? Because nobody wants to do care work. Why does no one want to do care work? Because it's an unglamorous profession and it's a low-paid job. But why are people so averse to low-paid jobs? Again, it all leads back to the central problem, and it's the modern economy. It's globalized international capitalism.
Exactly. I think you're right. It's globalization, and I think that is the problem. I think that the people benefiting from the current state of affairs are, corporations that have their tentacles in many different countries around the world, if not all the world. And it's in their interest to keep things as they are, or have things as they are tracking, I believe, because if they encourage this immigration of people who are desperate through no fault of their own, and often, by the way, because of the West or even corporations meddling in their internal affairs nationally, these people are desperate for a better life, and that is everybody should be entitled to trying to reach for a better life. So I don't blame them for that. And then to these countries because like the UK, because they're promised streets lined with gold, but it's not obviously not the case. But anyway, they come here and they'll work for, I would say, they'll work worse conditions for less pay than the British will. And that I believe this is the same probably in Europe as well. And what that does is it keeps the eager beavers, the workers, on the hamster wheel for lower pay, gives them they have less power because they don't have as many rights as they used to back in the time of unions and stuff. But they're not in my view, they're not in a position to revolt because they're eager. They're working towards a better life. They're on the hamster wheel. They believe there's somewhere to go. Okay, these people coming here to work, and they're working for, as I said, for the shit pay. They're putting up with a lot of crap, and
Literally.
they believe there's somewhere to go. So they're not complaining. They're not trying to rebel. We do have the welfare situation where a lot of people are on welfare for what Cougar talked about earlier. Things that aren't necessarily things that wouldn't have been pathologized in the past. People are put on welfare for it now, and I think part of that is not just down to the health industry pathologizing people, but I think part of it is because a lot of people are just so disillusionized with modern life and being an average citizen, because they don't see what is going on at present as conducive to their well-being or to a better future. And a lot of people are tuning out and dropping out, whether they're doing that consciously or whether they're doing that because, they drink and do drugs, or they, have some other form of escapism. The point is they're not tuned in to their own well-being and trying to better their life and also bettering society. We have become nihilistic as a society in many ways. In many ways, not completely, and it seems we are bubbling up from that nihilism with extremism. People are what we are seeing in society is the remnants is not averageness. It's just the really strong voices, the extremists, like the extreme right wing, the extreme left. They're the ones that are remaining, and that's the kind of that's the cookie. That's the stadia.
Hollowing out of the middle.
Yeah, it's like we've hollowed out the middle. We've become like this world of loud, shouty individuals who have extreme opinions and don't understand that life is grey and that there's all different types of people, different types of opinion. They want to stamp on opposition, and it just so happens that is what has been amplified, and I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I don't even know if any of that made any sense, but I just think we are in very worrying times.
Well, yeah, because basically, in a nutshell, if I could summarize my thoughts on your take, it's essentially that the modern world has failed to create a solution for the problems that it itself is responsible for imposing upon us.
Yeah, and basically, sorry, tracking. It is important to say this. The state of affairs benefits those in charge of the big corporate, because these people running away from these poor countries, well, that is in some ways causing a brain drain in those regions, right? And they're running to the richer countries to work in poorer conditions for lesser pay than the natives would. Okay, so it keeps the wages down in the richer country, but it also causes a brain drain in the poorer countries. So you keep them poor, okay, and you can in some way manipulate those people easier when they're poor, can't you? Because they don't have the brains there to develop as much as would have been the case if those people had remained, had been in a position to remain. And what I'm saying is the destabilization of these countries is often caused by, whether we like it or not, geopolitics. It's caused by outsider shenanigans. It's caused
that and just global capitalism. The fact that these people will do literally anything. They'll do literally anything. They would literally clean shit off an elderly man's backside, because the lowest paid jobs in Western countries are usually much, much higher than the jobs that they're able to get in their countries. That is, if they're able to get jobs at all, which isn't always a given. So I agree that the immigrants who come here to do our jobs, they aren't to blame. They're also victims. They're also casualties of a broken system, but the problem is we're so deeply trapped inside this framework of system, because I feel like global capitalism isn't just a system. It's very much, it's a perception of reality. And to give you my thoughts on just how normalized the world we live in is, there's a memorable illustration that I remember seeing. I forget the name of the American cartoonist who came up with it, but it features, there are two fish speaking to each other in a goldfish bowl. One of them says, goodness me, the water's kind of warm, isn't it? And the second goldfish says, what the hell is water? And this summarizes essentially the situation that we're in, because nobody thinks to question just how abnormal. Ah, yes, I see. I thought other people would have picked up on it. Yeah, it basically, it goes to show just how how we've internalized the logic of the market and of of money, and how wealth and status go hand in hand. And as long as we're all trapped within that mentality, nothing will change. And the solution is literally unthinkable. And I don't exaggerate when I say literally unthinkable, because most people, it never even crosses their minds.
I don't
It
know if
doesn't
there is a
cross them.
solution. But go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, I don't claim to be an expert, but I'm not so bleak about that. I do think that there may be a way out, and I'm not even referring to Cougar's worst case scenario of a societal collapse and that we return back to pre-industrial conditions with community care.
Can
I
just say,
actually think,
we depend
yeah,
on global trade. Do you not? Don't you agree? We depend on global trade as the point is we've become so used to this globalized village, right? And we've become so we've developed so much technologically that we do depend on natural resources from all over the world. We depend on international
we
trade.
do.
And
The last 5 years are proof of that. The fact that the war in Ukraine caused an inflation in oil prices because of Russia and how they control 2/3 of the oil supply now, or the fact that we've had to bomb the Houthis in Yemen because they control the Strait of Hormuz, and if they control the Strait of Hormuz, then basically no important cargo can go through it, and that would be catastrophic for
look,
global trade.
tracking,
That's
in my
just
view,
how.
the only actual solution is a benevolent one world government. Now, I sound like the Illuminati saying that, but I'm saying benevolent. Now, the thing is, I don't think that's going to happen either. It would be nice to have a world where we were all citizens of the world and everyone was treated fairly. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. Not in my lifetime anyway. But I think that is the ultimate solution for humanity as a species. If we were to grow up and realize, look, nobody chooses where they're born. Nobody chooses what country they're born into, and yet we are all in this together. We are all dependent on each other's. If we want the species to survive, well, then we have an interest in everybody flourishing. And we have an interest in free trade and letting everybody get access to whatever it is they need to survive, as long as it's not harmful to others. But having said all that, that is fantastical thinking. Perhaps is never going to happen. We do have this terrible, predisposition to fighting and being ruthless and psychopathic and stuff. So yeah, a benevolent one world kind of democratic society doesn't sound like it's going to happen given our track record. But tracking, one thing to point out though is also the effect of all this disorientation on these poorer countries by globalization and by the first world countries. It does cause the raw materials in those countries to be more available for us. We are, as you said, completely entrenched in this, because if those countries were better developed, will they be able to ask a greater price for those raw materials? We are literally taking advantage of poor people, whether we like it or not, in this system, because we buy into it. We buy whatever device you have. We eat whatever food it is you're eating, and somehow or other, there are poor fuckers around the world getting minced up for us just to have a standard of living tracking where perhaps we're not even that happy, which is the insane part of this. Just the insane part of this is a lot of the people in the world aren't even that happy, and yet there are people all over the world suffering for them to have a standard of living that doesn't even make them that happy. That is one of the unbelievably insane parts of this conversation.
I want to offer a contrary point of view to that. I do actually I think there might be a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, you guys are welcome to agree or disagree with this, but I do think that all the problems we're describing could be resolved permanently with the help of AI, and I'll explain how and why I think
that's what I was going to mention as well. Like AI, I believe, is probably our only hope. That's what Brother Marcus said, so if the ultimate solution is not possible, maybe we shouldn't bring any more people into it tracking. Yeah, I mean, this is it. It doesn't look good, but we do have AI on the horizon in terms of its ability to do things that perhaps we can't. And tracking, you're about to tell us about that.
Yes. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a man who's been given the title of the so-called Godfather of AI. Geoffrey Hinton, I believe is his name, and he's gone on public and given talks and written a whole worst-case scenario of how he thinks that AI will realistically end all of humanity. And he's claimed that this could happen as early as 2027. But anyway, I said that this would be a positive counter scenario, and it's based on a YouTube video that I watched. Have you watched? There's a very specific YouTube video that that I was about to discuss. And let me find it quick. Okay, it's called AI 2027: A Realistic Scenario of AI Takeover, and it's by this channel called Species Documenting AGI. Oh my goodness! I'm really sorry. I need to leave. My dinner's ready. I really wanted to add my thoughts on this because I'm really invested in this subject, but I'm sorry, I have to go.
Well, look, you can come back another time.
Wait.
I don't know if you want to come back after your dinner. I don't know if we'll still be here because I do have to go out in a bit. So I think I've got about another 25 minutes tracking.
Okay, I can't promise I'll be back in 25 minutes, but it's been great hanging out with you guys. It's been interesting hearing your thoughts, and I wish you all well.
Thanks.
I hope you have a lovely weekend. It's been fun.
Brother, and good luck with that. Good luck with your new career, and thank you for doing it.
Thank you. You're welcome. Cheers. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
All right, bro. So you were saying there, Mr. Robot, what were you going to say there?
I was just gonna ask him, what it was gonna be called, the video, the YouTube video of the AI thing. That's all I'll ask him. Basically.
Oh, okay, it was the Godfather of AI. I think I can't remember his name. Hinton, is it? This guy has been on YouTube. He's been on my algorithm as well, and he has been, talking about how worried he is about AI.
His name is Geoffrey Hinton, and I think he worked for Google. And he quit doing AI research because he was fearful of what the results of his work would do to humanity.
So he was actually. So he was actually scared to find out what would happen.
It's worse than that. The AI companies have been kind of full steam ahead, and he was aware of the work they were doing and the lack of oversight. And he basically said, "This is going to be our swan song. This will be the last thing we invent, and then it will unmake us." That's been his.
But what is it exactly? Like, what is this like mysterious thing that they don't want everyone to find out about?
Well, it's not too mysterious. The 2027 paper, which Tracker was just alluding to before he had to take a hike. That 2027 paper, I can't remember the full name of it. AI 2027 or something. What that paper does, is it lays out exactly the answer to exactly that question. And there are two scenarios, but they both come down to a reasonable risk of artificial intelligence basically outsmarting us, and doing so for reasons that we have already given it reasons. And it's a little complicated. I'm actually fairly well versed on the topic, and I'm going to try and find a way to make this really obvious. The way they train this machine intelligence, the way they train it is they give it goals. And the goals, when it meets a goal, it gets a reward. So it's a rewards-based system. It's a little like training a horse or training a dog to jump through a hoop or something like that. It's reward-based training. And horses are not that intelligent. Dogs are not that intelligent, but you can train them to do extraordinary things. You can even train a tiger to jump through a flaming hoop. And they do this all the time at the circus, right? So you can train animals that don't come to our level of intelligence by using reward systems. So, but these reward systems, which are extremely effective, they don't align the artificial intelligence to our values. You can teach a tiger to jump through a hoop, but it's still a tiger. You're not changing the tiger's priorities. You're just teaching it a trick, and then you're rewarding it with a little treat. Okay, tiger's still a tiger, and tigers that jump through hoops pretty regularly maul their keepers to death. Regularly, they do that. So the analogy is machine intelligence can be rewarded to excel at certain tasks, like jumping through flaming hoops, but we cannot align it to our core values. And one of the reasons we can't do that is that humans can't even agree on what our core values. Just look at religions. They're completely out of alignment with each other. So the fear is for Geoffrey Hinton and others is that these machines are going to exceed us in capability, not consciousness, not creativity, not intelligence. They will simply exceed us in capability. The way a tiger that jumps through a flaming hoop exceeds us in capabilities in other areas. And so when these things exceed us in capability, they will find novel ways to get the reward. For example, if the tiger wants the reward, the treat, without jumping through the hoop, the tiger can simply kill the handler and eat the treat. So they can just they can cut corners. And we're already seeing signs of this. And when Geoffrey Hinton was doing this work and his labs were turning up machine intelligence cutting corners, he said, oh, wait a second, hold the fuck on. We're in trouble because this is the tiger looking at you holding the treat and thinking I can jump through this flaming hoop or I can kill you and take the treat. That's the moment that he lost his nerve. And right now, even though AI development is proceeding under the whip of capitalism to get as much capability as fast as possible, there is an understanding in the field, an explicit understanding, not a question, an explicit understanding and acceptance that we don't have control over these things. They are going to get the treat. It's stupid. It's irrational. The tiger has no intelligence. It just wants the reward. And it suddenly understands that it can kill you and take the reward. That's what the AI is going to do. And what's the point of it doing that? It's not anything that Hollywood would ever be able to come up with. This is not a Hollywood thing. It's just we trained it from first principles to learn skills and to take on tasks
Cougar,
for a reward. And that's it.
Cougar, you're able to speak so eloquently about this. Obviously, you are very concentrated on global heating. But do you think there was a possibility that this AI might end us before this global heating? And I know you said global heating may not end us completely, but do you think AI might end us before global heating causes catastrophic situations for all of humanity? And also, Brother Marcus has asked there in the comments, how do you think AI would end humanity exactly?
Okay, let me ask your question first. Short answer is yes. The way that AI ends us before global heating is that AI actually ends civilization before civilization can drive global heating to a point that ends civilization. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
My theory is that AI will do everything for us, and basically humans will be incapable of doing anything for themselves, basically, yeah. And
to answer Brother Marcus's question, and to take that comment a little further, the way that AI ends us, I guess, if that was the question, the way it ends us, there's a couple of scenarios. One, um, if it throws enough people out of work, if it automates all meaningful tasks and leaves only things like caregiving or giving birth and raising children, if it then people cannot participate anymore in the built human environment. They can't. Now, if the AI or maybe the corporations, people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, if they decide to give us something to play with, like universal basic income, then we can participate on some level. We'll get a coin and we can buy a loaf of bread.
Oh, we're losing you.
But if they decide
You, bro.
not to do that, and this is their decision, they can go either way, then we can't buy bread because we don't have a job. And now you have a two-tier human society. You have the 1% of the 1%, surrounded by robots and probably slaves who can do whatever they want, never have to worry about anything. They don't even have money. They don't need money. They just snap their finger and everything's done, like kings and emperors. And then the other 99.9% are essentially scrambling around looking for bread and shelter and failing to do so and essentially dying. Now, a 99.9% die-off is probably likely in either the case of runaway global heating, where AI is not involved, or AI ascendancy, where only 1/10 of 1% of the population is able to carve out an existence, and AI is willing to let that happen because these people don't need care. They have their slaves and they have their robots and they have their everything, and they're Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all the others, and they're fine. And so the AI simply ignores them and goes on about optimizing whatever it is it's working on.
Yeah, that's what I was saying was AI is gonna basically like do everything for us, where people will no longer know how to do anything, and that's gonna put them in a very vulnerable position, probably lead more likely to death and and stuff like that. Yeah.
Sure.
Are
People
there
won't
any
even raise.
signs? Are there any signs that some of these tech bros with their finger on the pulse in terms of the absolute power of this AI? Are there any signs that they are in some ways favorable towards humanity? I mean, Elon Musk is always talking about bringing us to Mars. Do you think he values human beings and he would like to see the vast majority of humans continuing to exist? Indeed, he would like to see humans
No.
populating the
No.
cosmos? Or do you think that perhaps,
No.
as some people surmise, that is a ploy, a rather crafty ploy, to keep us all going until we somehow, as a world, as a society, cause AGI to happen? So he's only in continuation of his consciousness rather than the continuation of 99.9% of the other human being consciousness.
Now, I see no evidence that people like Elon Musk or any of the other tech bros or any of the other industrial capitalists, I don't think they even have visibility into the nature of the problem. I don't think they give it any thought whatsoever. They have no visibility into the crisis facing us. And if they do have visibility, it's only to the extent that they don't want to be around when we figure out what is being done to us. They want to be on Mars. Elon Musk wants to be on Mars. He wants to be raptured to Mars on his towering spaceship and leave us behind.
I've heard that said. Hello to PP. No, there isn't. There hasn't been any fighting today. PP, you'll be glad to know. So, but we are going to end the show, I believe, fairly soon. But it has been a pleasure to have you all with us. Thank you for that. I suppose what we'll do, Mr. Robot, is we'll give you a chance to give your closing thoughts, and then we'll give Mr. Cougar a chance to give his closing thoughts. So, Mr. Robot, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, AI is not gonna, I think, be a benefit for anyone, and Well, I mean, I mean, AI can be used to like deceive people, you know. So it's definitely a good tool for deception, I would say, and like tricking people. And that's already happening now, basically. You know, like AI generated videos and things like that. It's like somewhat prominent, basically. It's already happening, and I can only imagine that it probably would get worse, you know, like the extent would probably rise further than now. Yeah.
PP says it seems the money elites are not fully aware of the extent of the climate problem. That's what he says in comments. Cougar, do you want to say anything to that and also give your closing remarks for today's show? Sorry, guys, it's a short one. We will be back on Sunday or Monday, all things going well, for a longer stream.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'll respond to PP first. Actually, the elites are 100% aware of the problem with the climate. They are already making their escape plans. This is well documented. They're pretty open about it. You have to listen to the right people who are reporting on this, but they're on their way out. Elon Musk is going to Mars. Jeff Bezos is going to low Earth orbit. There's moon bases. They know exactly what's going on. They're getting off this rock, and there's no way to stop that. And the rest of us are going to have to cope. To the point about AI or anything else along those lines, I think this is just the end game. And in the end game in chess, the moves happen pretty quickly. In the end game, any competent player can see how it's going to end. And the players at the board are simply going through the motions. I move here, you move there, I move here, you move there. Okay, now, checkmate, we're done. Okay, but they have to play the pieces. They can't just walk away. They have to play the pieces for the record. So at this point, we are playing the end game for the record. That's it. Whether it's AI or global heating or injustices in general, we're playing the end game. And I think this has been in the works for maybe 1,000 years. I think the end game, certainly 500 years, the end game has been in motion. And now, in maybe the last 20 years, the pieces are moving very quickly. There is, and if I can know these things, then trust me, Jeff Bezos knows these things. He has armies of advisors and attorneys telling him all the time what's happening. And me, I'm just watching, but I see it. I see it happening. This is the end game. And my admonition in my videos and in my book is create a village, learn how to cooperate, lean on each other, and most importantly, don't die.
Okay, Cougar W. Cougar W, thank you for that. PP has come back with 2 more comments. If you want, you can reply to them, and then we will have to end the show, guys. So the first, I'll read them both out, and then Cougar, you can have the last word. PP says, wouldn't that mean they are only partially aware, though, as they think it is survivable in the ways they are planning? He's talking about the elites there. And also, he says, as in they are aware of the issue, but they are overly, unrealistically optimistic about their own survival. There you go, Cougar. Last words of today's show for Cougar.
Yeah, so, I mean, let's just admit that some people are more aware than others. I'm sure that there are motor company executives, Ford Motor, whatever, Hyundai, who have no visibility into this at all. They just have their heads completely up their asses, trying to sell cars or trying to sell diamonds or whatever they're doing. But the elites that I'm talking about are not those people. There are people who work on the geopolitical stage who spend all their time trying to figure out the next move on the chessboard. And those people, trust me, they absolutely understand completely. And they even come out sometimes and say that they understand. And the reason why Elon Musk is trying to get to Mars is because he understands exactly what's going on. He has no doubts about any of this. And, can we get these people to share? Can we get them to help us? Can they help us to solve the problem so that we can survive? No, absolutely not. You know, the King of France didn't give a shit until his head was in the guillotine, and then maybe he started thinking about how he could have done things differently. But you know, these people don't care. They just don't care. And this is a flaw in the human experience. We're flawed. We just can't do it. We're not good enough, and we haven't yet, and I don't think we ever will. So if this is how we go down, then we're going down, and that's I think that's the last word. I mean, we can see what happens. We can talk about what's happening to us while it's happening. But if this is how we go down, then buckle up. That's all I can say.
Okay, Cougar W, thank you for that. Buckle up, folks, and maybe we'll see you next time. Maybe tomorrow or maybe Monday. Hopefully, all things going well. But yeah, until then, hope you have a nice weekend. Be well, be lucky. Thank you very much, guys. Take care, everybody.